We've got Heather Reid next, and then we'll have a break for some music and some refreshment. So, Heather Reid.
I don't know how to lower it, so I'll just have to stand on tiptoe. Being women writing the weird, I don't have anything particularly weird to read, but the thing I've brought along is about some crucified fish. This is a picture here by John Bellamy. It's in the National Gallery, and the story is called Allegory. It was the year the light changed. The days were brighter, hotter, the nights alive with aurora borealis as far south as the Needles. There was talk of the second coming. You couldn't move for Jesus freaks. You couldn't move for Jesus freaks. And I've lost my place. Pointing to the signs. Although by then, any idiot could have walked on water. The algae was so dense. Curds of it piled against the shore and harbour walls. Folk began to leave, even those whose roots stretched back for generations. They sold up what they could and went to look for work inland. Nobody blamed them. The sea was dead, and there seemed little point in hanging on. At night you could almost forget. Lights still burned in the cottages, and the water looked black as it should. True, the sound was different, a muffled slump rather than the whispered hiss of waves. But if you took the back road to the inn rather than the coastal path, you could kid yourself that things were still okay. That evening I followed the shore, tossing pebbles out into the water. Archie was sitting on the jetty, the tip of his roller blowing in the dark. His was the last boat in the harbour, the others long since burnt or given up for salvage. One or two had been beached and left to rot, and their wooden ribs arched in the sand like the carcasses of great whales. She's a brave girl, I said, pointing to the Margaret Ann, last of her kind. Aye, you're not wrong. Archie flicked the butt of his fag into the sea, and I heard it fizzle. There was a sense of desolation, a silence unnatural even for night. I'm taking her out. We walked to the inn, and I stood him a malt or two, the burn of peat fierce in our throats. The landlord, John, was an artist who'd come to our village to paint the way of life. That was 20 years ago. Now I only draw pints, he quipped, although there was little humour in the words. I told him Archie's plan. You're wasting your time, my friend, said John. There's nothing left. What the nets didn't take, the algae smothered. I put my faith in whiskey if I were you. Less chance of disappointment. What'll it be? Archie frowned and shook his head. You're wrong, he said. It was an especially dark night, cloudy and starless, as we followed Archie down to his boat. We both knew it was foolish, dangerous even, but we helped him cast off, then watched as the Margaret Ann ironed a shimmering blue crease of bioluminescence into the black velvet fabric of the sea. I remember feeling sick, but John lifted his hand to wave and called, "Good luck, mate," as the vessel disappeared. Days passed and word of Archie's leaving spread around the village. An unofficial vigil began. People took turns to stand on the headland, scanning the verdant seascape for the boat. Even the children joined in, filtering down to the harbour after school, or cycling up the coast road to the point. I took my turn in the evenings, straining my eyes against the fading autumn sunlight. Ahead, vast rock rose like the crown of a wide-brimmed hat, long since deserted by the guillemots and solent geese that once formed a blizzard around the island. No fish we learnt, no birds. It was around 7 p.m. when I caught sight of the boat. Tilda McClaverty and her wee lad Marty had come to keep me company, and we shared a poke of chips from Chaz's chip yard. Even from a distance I could see something was wrong. The Margaret Ann was sitting low in the water, though her bow rose high and proud. Whatever she was towing was pulling her back end down and furrowing the algae like a cloud. As she drew nearer, I could hear her engine labouring against the wake. "Go tell the others," I said to Matty, "and tell them to be quick. I think there's fish." They came with their tools, those that were left, the netters and gutters, the flensers and scalers, all standing on the harbour when Archie moored the boat. "You'll need the crane," he shouted, and Eck ran to bring it round. There was an excitement and a sense of hopeful expectation as Archie secured the catch, but I saw in his face they were misguided. His skin was waxen, and his eyes dulled by horror. When at last the fish were landed, I saw why. What can I tell you about those fish? There were 3 of them, each as monstrous as the next, their huge bodies swollen with disease, their skins laced with sores and lacerations. But it was their heads that sickened, grotesque in the dying light, ribbons of flesh hanging from their gills, their saucer eyes white and blind. People turned away. I heard Tilda say to Matty, "Go on home, son," knowing, as I suspect we all did, that nightmares lay ahead. After that, silence. Then someone spat, and Eck moved forward, took a flensing tool from his neighbour, and began to hack until each ruined head had been removed. He stood panting, working his jaw as if to keep himself from crying. Then, when I could stand it no longer, I pushed through the crowd and kicked those heads into the harbour, watching as the swaying green algae closed like lips around them. I don't remember whose idea it was to crucify the fish, only that it took 8 men to lift them. The crosses, erected for the Passion Play 3 years ago, had remained there ever since, as if somehow we had known they had a purpose still to serve. The men worked quickly, slitting a knife along each belly and opening them out as though preparing them for drying. After that, the innards were hosed away, and the bodies hoisted up to the crossbeam and hammered on. When the work was done, Archie stood beneath the sagging fish, and rubbing a hand across his face announced, "That's all of them, it's finished." Tilda began to cry, and I pulled her to my chest and held her close. We stood like that for hours, until the moon rose, fat and yellow, and Bass Rock glowed like a halo behind the fish. From somewhere in the crowd there came the sound of someone praying. John, called from the inn, began to sketch.